what do you think is going to happen with the honey badger? Connor, we have talked
Jordan, no,
extensively.
I want to know first. What's your percentage at
No,
now?
that's what I was gonna say. We have
Yeah.
talked extensively, dude, over the past few weeks about percentages, and every week it gets lower and lower. I'm at like 15-20% now, dude. If that. I was
I
at
mean, he
like
did say,
yeah, I try not to read into what that guy says on Twitter because he says a bunch of stuff. He does wear his emotions on his sleeve, but Brett Veach came as close to saying without actually saying it. The Chiefs are
yeah.
prioritizing Orlando Brown Jr. over him, as they should. And then they have to look at the cap. They have to look at their other free agent signings. They have to look at it was like a bunch of excuses followed by, we love him. We want him to come back. I'm sure both of those can be true, but I think if I had to put money on it today, as of Tuesday, February 1st at 6:30 p.m. as we're recording this podcast, I would bet that he's not coming back to Kansas City. I could be wrong. I have been wrong about a billion things in the past, but just the vibe with this is bad. His side is not great. The Chiefs clearly don't have it as their tip top priority, which he's a tip top player or pretty close to it. I don't blame them for how they're going about this, especially considering how much he allegedly wants. But I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah. And what he allegedly wants is something north of what Jamal Adams got. And because he called that contract disrespectful. And that is 4 years, $70 million. So I don't know if he would want longer terms, like more than 4 years or 4 years, but he at least wants that 17.5 million a year, which will obviously carry a lot of guaranteed money. Yeah, I mean, I'm down there with you. I was trying to hedge my bets because I thought you were going to say like 50-50 or something, but you went all down to 20. I'm like, oh, I'll say like 40%. But I don't think it's looking good. And it's the same reasons we've said before with the fact that Tyrann, when you have a player like him and they have contract talks for a month before the season and they fall through and they're a free agent next offseason, it's just those players usually don't come back. We've seen it a lot with these superstar players. Those are the players that usually hit free agency. And the Chiefs cannot franchise tag Tyrann because I was reminded by Joel Corey or Cole
Yeah.
Jory. I forget. It was
Yeah,
Joe
it's Joel
Corey. Yeah,
Corey.
yeah.
Yeah.
I always forget because his name's a bit odd. But he mentioned that the franchise tag has to be 120% of what the last year's salary for the player was. And it usually doesn't factor in because usually the player salaries are lower than that for the franchise tag. But Tyrann Mathieu was 19.3 million. So it has to be at least 22 million for the franchise tag.
That's not happening.
That's not happening at all. Orlando Brown's is 16.5 million. So if anything's going to be franchised, it's Orlando Brown. If they didn't come to terms after a month of negotiating or more last offseason, I don't see how they can do it in a month and a half left to go. They have the money to bring him back, by the way. They will have the cap space to do so. It's because they're setting a hard and firm line with him that I don't think Brett Veach wants to cross. And it seems like they just can't meet there.
Christina also wants to know, Connor, I agree with everything you said there. What do you think will happen with Frank Clark? That's a hefty contract he has, and I'm not sure he's lived up to expectations this year. Well, Christina, you would be right. He has not lived up to expectations. He was better in 2021 than he was in 2020 by a pretty good margin, but still, he's getting paid elite money, and he was just solid or
TJ
good.
Watt.
Yes, prime TJ Watt type money, prime JJ Watt type money. He wasn't that. I think the very easy decision. He's a pre-June 1st cut. I don't think they wait until post-June 1st. They could still maneuver room without that.
You can designate, I think it's one or two players as post-June 1st without actually waiting.
I think it's one, right?
Yeah, it's one or two. I forgot the exact number, but you can designate players as that just so teams they don't want those players to be left in limbo until June 1st. So they gave that to teams. So those like Frank Clark could go into free agency and look around while the Chiefs could get the cap space they really need.
And if they do that, do they get the post June 1st money after June 1st, but still get the first half in the interim, or how does that work? Do they
I
get the whole thing
believe
up
it's
front?
I believe it's how you said. I would need to look into the mechanics more.
Okay. So
But
if they already knew they were cutting him, they could cut him pre June 1st. And then once, if they designated him post, once that threshold was passed, they'd get that extra however many dollars it is, I think.
it's an extra $6.8 million.
Yeah. I'm no cap
Yes.
expert. I've been trying to learn to keep up with Conner, but that's an impossible task. But over the past couple weeks, I've been kind of brushing up and going on over the cap using the calculator. The short answer, I think he's gone. I think the Chiefs cut him either pre or post June 1st, whether they designate him as whatever. I just don't think they can afford to keep him relative to his production. They really can't afford to keep him, even if he was really good. They need that money for other things. He needs to get to his next team. They're not going to restructure. Me and Conner have talked about it. He has no incentive to do that. Very rarely does a player take that big of a pay cut. Frank Clark is as good as gone, I think.